That song is from a group called Selah. If you want to get some good Christian music, look that up. S-E-L-E-E-H, right? Selah. Wonderful. So, in this day and age where our differences seem to be pulling us apart, here at Temple we've decided to make an intentional effort to become not just the multicultural church that we are, but an intercultural church where we really learn about and uphold each other's cultures and traditions. Dia de los Muertos, I have to practice that, is a sacred tradition in Mexican communities where they celebrate the life of their ancestors. So that's why we're using this colorful and uplifting altar this morning as we celebrate those who have gone on before. When someone we love dies, we know that we feel grief. Sometimes the sadness can be overwhelming. And Dia de los Muertos doesn't say we can't still grieve, but it tries to teach us to celebrate the lives of those who were so important to us. Our ancestors live on in glory. They also live on through us as we honor them with our lives. So this is also All Saints' Day in the church, and we remember those who have gone before us and on whose shoulders we stand here at Temple. I lost a good friend recently, and with loss so recent, sometimes it's a little hard to get to that place right away of celebrating. In some ways I can't yet, but what I can do is I can remember the laughter and the lessons and the things we went through together. And I bring that up because I know for some of us we're in different places with grief, and I want to acknowledge that not everybody's up for the party, but I also want to say that I think it's a really healthy thing that they do in Mexico to really celebrate the lives of those people who have made such a difference in their lives. Amen. There is reason, right, to celebrate, to dance, to smile for what once was, even if it's gone. Our love is eternal, right? And we share that love by sharing pieces of our hearts with one another, and we can still do that even when our heart hurts. Human heart is a miracle in that way, isn't it? We Protestants, we don't talk much about saints. We think of saints mostly in the context of the Roman Catholic Church, where there's formality around the recognition of saints. But the term saint crops up a lot in the New Testament, especially when the Apostle Paul is writing to some of his different churches. He's aware of how hard those people are working at living out their faith. And so they're real people with real problems in aprons and overalls. They're just like us, right? And yet what they do makes a difference, just like us. The people who envisioned this church, this beautiful sanctuary that we sit in today, they could see a need for something different. It's a hard thing to envision something brand new, but it's much harder to get people to see it with you. I have so much respect and admiration for those with the insight to build this church for us, knowing that they were building a future for people they would never meet. Apparently, this church was the coming together of 4 churches, and it was homeless for about 15 years, using makeshift accommodations while holding out this steadfast faith for its future. After years of planning and long months of intense committee meetings, plans were made for a permanent new home. They bought 29,000 square feet in this place right here, and they believed that would assure them a citywide ministry central to what was at that time an extensive new and future residential development, and definitely unchurched, a big harvest field. And they wrote this: Temple Methodist will boldly stand at the intersection of 2 of the most famous thoroughfares of the nation. Its tower and spire holding aloft the cross, will testify that our people have kept the faith and moved on to greater fields of service. Beautiful. On March 29th, 1953, on Palm Sunday, the groundbreaking ceremony took place. The first service in this sanctuary took place on December 20th, 1953, Christmas Sunday. Bishop Donald H. Tippett, you might recognize that name, presided over the official opening service, which was January 24th, 1954. And then on January 26, 1964, 10 years later, a second building was completed, where Tippett Hall now is, and the Christian education facilities. Nationally, what was happening at that time was the Methodist Church was merging with the Evangelical United Brethren Church and formed then the United Methodist Church in 1968. And so January 26th, 1969, Temple Methodist Church became Temple United Methodist Church. Now, later in the 90s, another group of saints recognized the importance of Temple pronouncing its open and compassionate love for all people. And in 1993, this resolution was made. Whereas Temple United Methodist Church is rich in its diversity of cultures, ethnic groups, ages, and interests, and whereas this congregation has become faith home to gay and lesbian persons, as well as persons of many races and cultural backgrounds, persons who are deaf and hearing impaired, and persons with physical, mental, emotional, and developmental disabilities, and whereas we embrace our diversity and unity in the Spirit of Christ, while we acknowledge that the range of our spiritual search leads us to different levels of spiritual experience. Therefore, we move the following resolution: that Temple United Methodist Church declares itself to be a reconciling congregation, and that by this declaration we expressly affirm, honor, and welcome all persons, regardless of sexual orientation, gender, race, cultural background, physical or mental health or ability, age, family status, or financial circumstances. Amen. Now, becoming a reconciling church today is pretty common, but back in the 90s when you did it, it was not. It took a special kind of church with insightful and courageous saints to make it happen. It's pretty much guaranteed that if a church says they are a reconciling congregation, they have been through a split over that. We aren't all in the same place at the same time. And church splits are hard, and they leave us in this place of grief, a season of grief, before we're able to feel the solid ground beneath us again. It happened here at Temple, but on a very small scale. All Saints' Day recognizes those hardworking, faithful people in our churches who have sacrificed so much for us, through their generous giving and their hard work. And we're so blessed by those who could see a way where there was no way, and yet they carved a path for us to walk. I pray that we will be as insightful, generous, and hardworking for those in the future that we will never meet as those in our past were for us. We need to be thinking about what we're leaving for those to come and dreaming of what we'll offer them as they face ministry in this place. Dia de los Muertos recognizes our family ancestors and the path that they created for each of us, right? When I'm with my family, my aunts and my cousins and my brothers and sons and grandchildren, I'm filled with a sense of belonging. I love hearing all the family lore, the family stories that connect us, that make us laugh, and the memories that make us cry together. I think we live differently when we keep in mind the people we love who loved us. Maybe we're a bit kinder, or maybe we're a bit more forgiving, or maybe just a bit more thoughtful. We want to be our best selves in light of what they meant to us or what they did for us. I think of my mom and dad all the time, wondering if they're happy with the choices I've made. I think about them when I sit down to eat dinner with family or friends, because so much of our lives revolved around our dinner table and the conversations there. I am who I am, just like you are who you are, because of the people that came before me, who lifted me up, who helped me along the path. When I first saw a Day of the Dead celebration, I was kind of taken aback. I don't know if you were. They've been around for a while now. They hit America a few years ago. But it seemed so odd to me, making these sugar skulls that were painted with flowers and things, and altars with marigolds and photos and all the memorabilia. The first time I saw it, I was in New York City with one of my sons, and they were spray painting their bodies in all different kinds of colors and going out for these big marches to the cemeteries. And it was just something. Everybody's laughing and dancing, and then they all go to the cemetery and they clean the headstones of their loved ones and they leave presents. And over the years, I've really come to appreciate, a culture that's not afraid of death, but rather celebrates their loved ones, and one day a year believe that they will be reunited with those that they've loved if they only recognize them on the altar. So whether we're talking about saints of the church or our ancestors, today's the day that we remember that there were people before us who made a way for us, whose lives defined ours, lit the path that we walk on, and they deserve our thanks. Even if not everything in our history is positive, it still got us here, right? It got us where we are now. It gave us a chance to think of something new, something different, maybe something better. So don't be afraid of new things, and don't be afraid of change. We want to be looking to the future for those who come next, for those who are counting on us to dream big and to have the insight and energy to carve the path they will walk. God calls each of us not just to take from this life, but to give to it, to press on so that it continues, so that we make a way where there was no way. The life of the church, the way of Christ, the life of hope, count on us to continue to spread the word, to be the light on the path for a future we cannot see. Amen? Amen. Well, one tradition that has lived on to nourish us in our Christian walk is the sacrament of communion. And so as we celebrate this great act,